Good evening. Welcome to today's webinar on our weekly webinar, which is based on this book, Affirmations for Self-Healing by Swami Kriyananda ji. My name is Brahmachari Vineet. With us is Brahmachari Jemal, and we are sharing with you from a monastery in Khandala. And the interesting part about this webinar is that this is not a webinar which we do just on Fridays, or this is not a practice which we do just on these Fridays during the webinars, but this is a practice we do every morning as a group, as we have shared in our previous webinars. And I hope we can build this magnetism by sharing it together online. And I hope you've been doing your homework, which we have been sharing about, which is doing these affirmations during the week, and not just like last week's affirmation was on contentment, and you can then practice that affirmation throughout the week and just not be contented by doing the webinar, only the affirmation during the webinar. And by this way, we really help each other in that building that divine yearning and that spiritual longing to know the divine, and helping each other. And speaking of spiritual yearning and divine longing, this week's topic is devotion. So this week's topic, devotion, the format will be: first I'll read the reading from the book, we'll do the affirmation, the shorter version of it first, and then Brahmachari Jemal will share, I'll share a little, and then we'll do the affirmation at the end properly, the entire full version of it. So let's begin with the reading for devotion. Swamiji writes, "No good end is ever reached without devotion. No true success is achieved unless the heart's feelings are involved. Willpower itself is a combination of energy and feeling directed toward fulfillment. In the quest for God, the unfolding of the heart's natural love in the form of deep devotion is a prime requisite for success. Without devotion, not a single step can be taken towards Him. Devotion is no sentiment. It is the deep longing to commune with and know the only reality there is." Let's affirm together, first out loud. With the sword of devotion,
With the sword of devotion,
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
With the deepest love,
With the deepest love,
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
In a normal voice, with the sword of devotion,
With the sword of devotion,
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
With the deepest love,
With the deepest love,
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
In a whisper, with the sword of devotion,
With the sword of devotion,
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
With the deepest love,
With the deepest love,
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
Now mentally taking it to the subconscious, with the sword of devotion, I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion. With the deepest love, I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence. Now mentally again, but bringing it forward to the superconscious mind, gazing at the point between the eyebrows, stay completely focused on the affirmation as you mentally say this affirmation again mentally. With the sword of devotion, I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion. With the deepest love, I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence. Mentally praying, "Beloved Father, Mother, God, I am thine alone. Let others seek thee or seek thee not. It matters not to my love for thee. Through all life's trials, my prayer is this alone: reveal thyself." Now Brahmachari Jemal will share with us.
Hi everyone. Before I speak a little bit on devotion, I wanted to talk about the importance of affirmations. Only the novice or beginner on the spiritual path would think, oh, I don't need devotions, or I don't need affirmations, which I myself thought in the beginning. I thought, oh, that's okay. I'll do Kriya and Hong Sa, but I don't need affirmations. But as you go on the spiritual path, it's said like this, that an iceberg in the ocean, that when you see it, that what you're only seeing actually is the top, I might have the fraction wrong, but I think 1/7 of the iceberg, and actually underneath the ocean is the other remaining 6/7, that you only are seeing just a little bit of it. And it's the same way that we have our conscious mind that we're going through the day with, but our subconscious mind is much more vast and much more deep and holding many, many thoughts. And as we grow on the spiritual path and we want to control our thoughts, that as we're paying attention, we begin to realize that there's a lot of subconscious thoughts there that are difficult to control, and that we need to come in with as many forces as we can in order to bring the subconscious mind under control. And there's many different ones: the Guru's grace, devotion, and affirmations, and others. But let's talk about the topic now, devotion. You know what devotion is? Devotion is the thing that keeps one going on the spiritual path. That if you really love someone, that you will go through great difficulties in order to help that person. You will do self-sacrifice in order to give to the other person. And when we have that love for God, that love for the Guru, that is the quality that will keep us on the path for an entire lifetime. You know, again, if you're a beginner on the spiritual path, it seems like, well, now I've found it, it's easy, I'll just go right ahead. But after you stay around for some years, you see people kind of going hither, thither, and not still going straight for God, and you wonder what happened. And what happened is they didn't have enough devotion. That they had maybe an intellectual understanding of the spiritual path, or they had a desire for God, which we can call devotion, but it was only a little bit, and it wasn't a great desire. You know, in the affirmation that we're doing right here this evening, the key is there. This affirmation is showing us that even though we have other little desires for this and that thing in the world, that if we cultivate the biggest desire of all that we should have, make that God, and we can call that devotion. When that desire is for God, we can call that devotion. If that becomes our biggest desire, like some kind of wonderful monster, it will eat up all of the other desires, and they become like nothing. Master used to say that if you taste good cheese, then the bad cheese, you just won't even think about it anymore. And once we feel God's love for us, once we feel the joy that comes when we know that God loves us, when we know that God cares about us, once we feel God's love in the way where we just feel like we're in love with everyone, and in love with life itself, in love with the dogs on the street, and we have compassion for them and hope that their life is going okay. Once that kind of love starts developing in us and blossoming in us, it makes all the things of the world look like nothing. But we have to keep giving that inner relationship energy. We have to keep cultivating it. You know, once Swamiji, he inwardly was praying, "Master, teach me to love you like you love me." And I don't know the duration of how long this went on, but after some time, Master was aware of what was going on in Swamiji's mind, and Master just said one thing to Swamiji. He said, "How can the little cup hold the whole ocean?" Meaning, how could Swamiji's, at that time, egoic consciousness hold an infinite amount of love? That Master had an infinite amount of love. And so he was telling Swamiji that Swamiji, at that point in his spiritual development, needed to expand his heart to include everything, to love everyone. And so Swamiji then really made it a point to work on devotion. And another thing about this story, speaking of Master being able to read Swamiji's mind, I wrote a blog recently on AnandaIndia.org, and I learned something in writing that, and it was, I think we may all know, that Master said to Swami Kriyananda, "I know every thought you think." But now some of us might think, well, that was when Master was in the body. Now he's not here. He doesn't know what I'm thinking. Of course he still knows what you're thinking right now. And we need to understand this relationship, and devotion will give us this kind of relationship, that Master is here right now. We also need to have this kind of relationship that at the end of our lives, that Master will be there. And then he'll know every thought that we had throughout this entire incarnation. He'll know every thought that we had all of our incarnations in the past and all of our incarnations in the future. Now, that's some heavy stuff, and that comes with these states of superconsciousness. And how do we achieve these states of superconsciousness? With devotion. The other point that I wanted to make on that is, what is it like to be in the physical presence of someone who has that consciousness and knows everything that you think? The only way that one overcomes that, and I know this from experience with Swami Kriyananda, in the beginning I felt like a bug. Like he's, this evolved and I, okay, maybe a monkey. But it's embarrassing to be in front of him. He knows every thought that I think. But you know what crosses that barrier is love. That I know that even if I am a mess and have all kinds of problems, I love him to the little extent that I can. And I know that he must love me much more than that. And I know that his love is here to help me and overcome all of these problems and learn how to control my conscious mind and my subconscious mind. These are big jumps to take, so that then we can open up the superconscious mind. And so having that love to the best that I could in those days, to the best that I can in these days, and really trying to open myself to an influence of the Guru who will come in and take charge of my life. I was reading a Kriya booklet, and I know I'm not talking to Kriya bonds right now, but the Master, that he can come into your life and change it in amazing ways. That he can merge his consciousness with your consciousness. But you have to open the door. Means you have to have devotion. You have to open your heart. And if you'll open your heart and open the door, he will come in and take charge of your life. And he will help you overcome all limitations, all delusions. Don't think that you can get there with your own power. You have to try, but when you let in an infinite power, that you can make it, and that you can become a perfected human being. And I'll end with this, that if we do open our hearts and minds to God, that if we try to have perfect devotion, the end result is joy. That we end up just being so happy, and we see that life is all for a reason, and even the bad things are happening for a reason, and for our own good, and for other people's own goods, for the planet's evolution, for its own good, and that everything's going just as it should, and that God's doing a wonderful job directing things up there, and we're just happy to participate in his little drama and love him, and that no matter what happens in his drama, that it's our job to love him, and that love, it brings a joy like we can only just begin to imagine. But slowly, we'll keep waking up to it, we'll keep going in that direction, and we'll keep living in perfect joy. Thank you.
Thank you, Jemal. When Jemal started, he said, what devotion is, and I got really curious, and I wanted to really listen to the entire thing, because whenever someone says what is or devotion is, I'm just all ears to know. And he said very beautifully, devotion is that which keeps us going. And as we were preparing for today's webinar setup, there's a camera behind, there's a microphone, there's a computer, and a lot of things. One of my brother monks, he mentioned as I got in, he said, do you know what a defibrillator is? And I have no idea of what a defibrillator is. I have no scientific knowledge. And he apparently got a shock, and he wanted to compare the shock he got with a defibrillator. And I looked up online. Whenever I hear a new term, I look it up. And I found, to give a layman example or explanation of it, it is something, if you've seen the movies, when someone's heart is not pumping right or something, they have these two iron-like things, and they, put it on the chest, and then you jump. And it's basically, the definition which I read was, it helps you to keep your heartbeat at a normal rate, or to revive it at a normal rate. Now, if you're wondering how is all this related to devotion, I just wanted to mention that devotion is heart, and now we won't be speaking about the physical defibrillator, but about some spiritual defibrillators. What stops us from being devotional? What stops us from feeling that love which Jemal was sharing about? Well, two things. One, if the heart gets closed, and the second thing is when the heart's energy starts going down. And on the spiritual path, what we really want is the heart to be open to the divine, to God's love, and then also to the love to our fellow beings and everything on earth, and also our energy going up towards the divine. Now, many times, due to some hard knocks of life, a heart gets closed and shut, and the energy goes down. And in such cases, what we need is a spiritual defibrillator. In other words, something which can open our heart and which can raise our energy up. One beautiful technique which Jemal shared and which we have been doing now is affirmation, and which can in some ways be compared to chanting also, because chanting is something which we do, repeat using the same words, repeating it over and over, but in a musical, rhythmic way. Now, Paramahansa Yogananda ji, whom we refer to as Master, he said, chanting is half the battle. And an affirmation like this, or a chant as simple as, I want only thee, or an affirmation like this, I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion, that has great power. Now, sometimes our subconscious, which has been loaded with incarnations, can say, I don't know if I want only thee, Lord, or I don't know if I want to sever those strings that tie me to delusion. I still like that tiny little, chocolate ice cream. I'm fine with all other flavors of ice cream, but chocolate ice cream, no, I like that. Now, I'm just giving an example because we can take it lightly about this. But then, someone asked Swamiji, what do I do if I can't sincerely chant, I want only thee? And Swami Kriyananda ji, he said that you can always say, I want only thee, mentally. And in my case, these days, what I use is, mentally, I tell myself that even if I like that chocolate ice cream, what I'm really looking for behind that chocolate ice cream is happiness. And that happiness I know is going to come from God alone. So I really want only thee, just that right now I'm misguided. And in that way, having our subconscious really under our control and using these affirmations without any question of doubt, and then taking it forward to the superconscious, just using the full power of words, because words have power. And with the use of these words, we can really break that, delusion binding shackles and open our heart and then offer it up to the divine. And then the second thing Swamiji says is, I'll just read it again in the write-up which is before. He says, no true success is achieved unless the heart's feelings are involved. Now, I've tried, and so have you maybe many times in your life, to get something in order in your life. Maybe it was a habit which you weren't very happy about and you wanted to turn it around. A simple habit as waking up early or meditating every day. And no matter how much I reasoned out the benefits of waking up early, or the benefits of meditating, or the benefits of acting kindly, it just didn't work. Or it would work, but only temporarily. Why? Because reason always follows feeling. So why not directly act with the feeling of the heart? Now, the same thing, instead of putting an alarm in the night and telling, okay, I'm going to wake up tomorrow early, how about trying this, that tomorrow, really preparing your heart, I'm just looking forward for my meditation tomorrow morning. Let's call this a spiritual alarm rather than just the physical alarm. And then you will find that much more than the physical alarm, you will be really ready. And with the physical alarm, that sound, you might even wake up after 10 snoozes and you'll be there for meditation and still thinking, oh, if I could have slept 10 minutes more. But if your heart is ready, just like Jemal was sharing, don't you want to give everything to whom you love? And there's a very funny story. When I was a teenager, I was attending a wedding of my cousin, and I happened to be traveling after a function. It was basically a pre-wedding function, and I was after the function, he sat in the car. I accompanied him as his brother, and he got out, and he was soon after that on his phone. And I was like, what are you doing so importantly? And he said, oh, I'm just messaging her. And I was like, who's this her? And he was just going to, she was going to be his wife in a couple of days, and he was with her a few minutes before. But he just couldn't wait for that 10 minutes, and he sat down in the car and he was messaging her, and I was like, wow. And so similarly, whatever we are doing, whether we are, doing our day-to-day life, if at the background we have mental thoughts will automatically go towards something which we are really devoted towards. And if we aren't, and it needn't be just in the case of our spiritual search, it can also be in the case of our day-to-day life, the projects we deal with, our family, our loved ones, our friends, and our goals and missions in life, our aspirations in life. This thing we can apply to everything that heart's feeling, and without that, nothing much, as Swamiji quoted, can be achieved. Now, with that, let's get on to the practice of the affirmation itself. I'll pass it on to Jemal. We'll now do a fuller version of this, and you can repeat the affirmation many times, as many times as you want. And you can never overdo it, honestly, and try to practice this over the week. And with that, I'll pass it on to Jemal.
Thanks. That was beautiful. Okay, so we'll do this affirmation. We'll do it 3 times loudly, then 3 times in a normal voice, so on and so forth. And let's do it with as much concentration as we can. So, with the sword of devotion,
with the sword of devotion,
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
With the deepest love,
with the deepest love,
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
With the sword of devotion,
with the sword of devotion,
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
With the deepest love,
with the deepest love,
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
With the sword of devotion,
with the sword of devotion,
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
With the deepest love,
with the deepest love,
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
And now in a normal voice, with the sword of devotion,
with the sword of devotion,
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
With the deepest love,
with the deepest love,
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
With the sword of devotion,
with the sword of devotion,
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
With the deepest love,
with the deepest love,
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
With the sword of devotion,
with the sword of devotion,
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
With the deepest love,
with the deepest love,
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
With the sword of devotion,
with the sword of devotion,
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
With the deepest love,
with the deepest love,
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
And now in a whisper, with the sword of devotion,
with the sword of devotion,
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
With the deepest love,
with the deepest love,
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
With the sword of devotion,
with the sword of devotion,
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
With the deepest love,
with the deepest love,
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
With the sword of devotion,
with the sword of devotion,
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion.
With the deepest love,
with the deepest love,
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence.
Mentally, with the sword of devotion, I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion. With the deepest love, I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence. With the sword of devotion, I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion. With the deepest love, I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence. With the sword of devotion, I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion. With the deepest love, I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence. Again, mentally, this time trying to take it deep into the superconscious mind. With the sword of devotion, I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion. With the deepest love, I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence. With the sword of devotion, I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion. With the deepest love, I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence. With the sword of devotion, I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion. With the deepest love, I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence. Once more. With the sword of devotion, I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion. With the deepest love, I lay my heart at the feet of Omnipresence. Let's just take a few moments here of silence and absorb these words. We have a few more minutes, and so just these simple words, with the deepest love. That's something that each one of us has to go within, and we have to feel what is our own deepest love, and we have to try to take that love and make it more and more deep, so that all the little things of the world, that they're not important, so that in meditation we can, in a moment, switch our mind from all the duties that we have and keep our mind deeply on God. And if you're in love with another human being, keeping your mind, as Vineet was talking about with the message on the phone, it's easy to keep your mind on another human being. If you're in love with God Himself, herself, it's easy to keep your mind on God. Swami Kriyananda said that he, I don't know the exact words, but basically would have made it, whatever made it means, very quickly had he had devotion in the beginning. But that he went more by intellect and more by willpower, and of course he had Master's grace and he made great progress, but he felt that it would have been very easy had he also combined that with devotion. And when we feel that we're not the ones doing anything, that we're not the ones meditating, that we're not the ones doing our duty, that there's some power behind us, some infinite power that runs universes, that runs everything, then life becomes easy. Once Master was having a difficult time with the organization, probably someone giving him some lawsuit or something, God knows what the difficulty was. And he went out in the desert and prayed and just said, I don't want this organization. You take it back, Divine Mother, that I just want to be with you. And Divine Mother said to him, I run universes. And you can't run this little pinpoint of an organization? And the most interesting thing is that Master understood. I thought I was the one doing this. You're the one doing this. It's your organization. You're the one making lawsuits, defending lawsuits, doing all of this. It's your show. And that I'll do whatever you ask me to, Divine Mother. You'll take care of everything. And of course she did. And of course she's there, taking care of all of us. But we have to feel it. So, please join us next week. The topic is a good one. It's going to be forgiveness. And so we'll do affirmations together on forgiveness. You know, it's such a wonderful thing if you can join us every week, and we'll go through topic after topic, but we'll take these 52 important topics on the spiritual life. These are topics that Swamiji knew were important on the spiritual path, and we'll take his wisdom and his guidance how to navigate these topics and how to go deeply into them. So it's been a wonderful time with you this evening, and we look forward to next week. Thank you.